Welcome everybody to another edition of TEW 2020 here as we're continuing our MLW series here in 2004 as we're on the road to War Games. So let's get rolling with the first underground of the taping. So let's get going. So we started on the actual show with basically the Pitbulls and SAT brawling backstage, and after brawling they agreed to a title match tonight after basically the, Pitbulls challenged the Maximus manhood, and there we go. Just a quick, start off to set up a match later tonight, and this gets a 30. Not the best, because again, these guys aren't the best promo guys in the world. What can you do? I know, not having them do promos, but, really what can you do? Anyway, we had a good heat and decent wrestling. Jason Cross defeated Michael Modest in 8:45 at Pinfall the Crossfire. This gets a 48. Cross gets a 51. Modest gets a 42. Cross just gets more over. And just a straight ahead win for Cross to get him over as sort of a top junior heavyweight guy. And then Cross celebrating gets a 28. We move on to a better promo where he basically, continues his rock god gimmick. He has a guitar with him. He says, he's here to bring music to the MLW fans. And if he has to, beat up a few people and cause them pain to get them to hear the message, so be it. This gets a 41, not bad, because Fitter's actually pretty over as a guy. But let's get rolling to the next thing. So we had Heart Foundation backstage promo. This gets a 21. This is bad. This is just a bad promo because everybody rolled bad on it. So, yeah, they just do backstage stuff. Jay Hart continues to talk about wanting to be a junior heavyweight champion. The tag guys talk about, wanting to be a tag champion. Natty's still on TJ's lap. Val's still actually flirting with both Harry Smith and Jack Evans, because why not? And there we go. Just a quick promo to get them some TV time. And this gets a 21. Then we had about a decent reaction from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Homicide defeats Puma in 7:46 by pinfall 187. This gets a 41. Homicide gets a 44. Puma gets a 31. Just a sort of straight ahead win for Homicide to put him over. Puma's not quite a title guy for the light heavyweight division. That means sometimes he'll do random jumps on the TV like this. But what can he do? Homicide goes over. Pretty solid match. And then low-key, because Homicide got involved in his business last week, so Low-Key's good involved in his business this week. As Low-Key attacks Homicide from behind, hits him with a bunch of kicks, and NBA officials eventually get down here and break it up. But there you go, and that continues their feud, and this gets a 44. And then in our main event of the night, which isn't our actual main event, but the main event match of the night, and a decent match of the Phantom Pitbulls defeat the SAT. In 1420, when Mercury Rays pin Joel Maximo with the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Pitbulls win the tag crown titles. Rocky gets a 29, Ricky gets a 44, Joel gets a 43, Jose gets a 50, and this gets a 46 overall, and the Phantom Pitbulls get their big title win. And then the Pitbull Celebrating gets a 38. And I just did this, because basically I've already done the SAT and the Pitbulls as a match on big shows, so I decided to do this title change, so they can both kind of go their separate ways, at least for the moment. But this gets a 38, perfectly solid thing. And then we have our actual real finish. So, and I'll actually show everything in a moment here. But basically, Lynn and Carino come down. Carino says, he was busy in Japan, being a real star, unlike the rest of these, people in the back. Along with the rest, the rest of my Extreme Horsemen took care of business. But, I heard Jerry Lynn make a challenge for a War Games match. So, he brings Lynn down to make a deal. And they both argue for a bit. And basically, and the first agreement they come to is that if the Extreme Horsemen win, then nobody on Jerry Lynn's teams, which is going to be Lynn, Chris Hero, Nigel McGuinness, and Roderick Strong, can get a MLW title shot as long as Carino stays the champion. That's part one. But Lynn fights back that if his team wins, that at the next big show, the King of Kings, the main event will be a 5-way title match where it'll be everybody on the babyface team against Carino in a 5-way match for the MLW World Heavyweight title. They agree. But then Carino says, if I'm going to be that forgiving, I want something a little more. And Lynn says, fine, let's really make the stakes high. Whoever submits is out of Major League Wrestling. I know I can get my boys to get behind it. Can you get your side to get behind it? Especially when you have to find a partner. And Scrino says, yes, but if I agree, you have to basically agree to it before I reveal my fourth man. And Carino Lynn basically strikes us, says, yeah, I don't care who your fourth man is. I've me and 3 of the best wrestlers on the planet, so I'll fight whoever you want. So after a moment, Carino agrees. They basically, shake on it tensely, and then some familiar music hits, and out comes the Extreme Horsemen's fourth man, at least for one night, Bryan Danielson. Crowd pop, so there's your main event, which I'll officially put in the pre-booking here because I haven't done much yet. So time to actually pre-book some matches. So first, in a where is War Games? Okay, I'm gonna have to create War Games. One is, aren't I? Okay, well, I'll change this in the actual to be announced. But yeah, so it's going to be officially Jerry Lynn, Nigel McGuinness, Chris Hero, and who's the last guy? I'm Roderick Strong, taking on D'Lo Brown, Simon Diamond, Steve Carino, and Bryan Danielson. And yeah, as you saw, that got a 66. So there we go, 4 versus 4. I'll add the War Games match, which I thought we had later on, so we'll pre-book that. And also, another pre-book match I can do is basically Loki versus Homicide officially. That's happening. And then there'll be another couple matches taking being created on the next show. But yeah, this gets a 66 because Carino, Lynn, and Danielson all did their job. I put Danielson basically in as a cameo appearance, as he basically shows up at the end of the show. Basically says, Lynn, at Devil's Night, you're gonna be reminded why I'm the best in the world, and you're gonna be out of this company once and for all. So this gets 66. Show overall gets a 50. Solid stuff. And that's it for this taping, so I'll be back with the other taping in just a moment. Okay, time for the second taping of Underground. This is a go-home show for Devil's Night, as we're in front of, total 350 people in St. Petersburg, as we start with a backstage promo, where basically Carino, Bryan Danielson, and Diamond are all backstage, and they basically say it's a preview of War Games tonight, when they're going to face 3 of the baby faces, and they're going to tear them apart, and make them hurt even before War Games. This gets a 67, and just a straight head heel promo to set up the rest of the show. Then we start within a poor match, Jack Evans and TJ Wilson defeat Quincy Puma and M-Dog 20 and Jack Collier in 10-14 when Jack Evans pinned M-Dog 20 with a corkscrew moonsault. This gets a 41. TJ gets a 35. Jack Evans gets a 43. Puma gets a 31. Bobby Quinn gets a 34. Jack Collier gets a 31. M-Dog 20 gets a 35. And basically, just a big win for the Hart Foundation team. And the Hart Foundation with Val and Addie celebrate afterwards. It gets a 30. And later on in the show, it's announced that the SAT don't believe they're worthy of a rematch since they lost the tag titles. So it's been agreed to that the world tag title match at Devil's Night will be Jack Evans and T.J. Wilson getting a shot against Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero. Not totally out of nowhere because they've been getting some solid wins over the last couple of weeks, but just a big match for the Hart Foundation as they try to make it their name in Major League Wrestling. And we move forward with the babyfaces backstage, basically, just hyping themselves each other and saying this is the night to strike a blow against the Extreme Horsemen before we strike the final blow against them at Devil's Night. 46, because these guys aren't the best talkers in the world, but still pretty decent. Can't complain too much about it. And then in a decent match, Sabu defeated both members of the Samoa 9 tribe who are in Ekmo as he defeats Mana and Samu in a hardcore match in 654 when Sabu pinned Mana with an Arabian facebuster. This gets a 43. Sabu sustained a blown eardrum. Yikes, that might not be great for Ekmo for Sabu. But Sabu gets a 54 because he's great. Samu gets a 36. Mana gets a 35. And yeah, this is just a hardcore handicap match. Chairs, tables. Sabu probably takes a dumb bump, but at the end of the match, he's manages to get Mana by himself and get the big win. And then Sabu celebrates, gets a 45. We have a quick backstage promo where basically the Amazing Red is still injured. Like we see him, his knee's injured, right? Yeah, so being all taped up. And Jason Cross comes up and says, "Buddy, basically he asked for a title match if Amazing Red is ready." And Amazing Red says, "I will be ready at Devil's Night." This gets a 35. And here's the thing. I'm not going to pre-book this. partly because I don't have to pre-book. Well, actually, yeah, because it will gain a small boost because we already have like everything set up for the big show. But I don't want to like set up the Cross Red match just in case like Red is still isn't too injured, because it's just on that last day where I'm not actually sure if Red will be able to wrestle or not. But regardless, this gets a 35. Then we have our main event, which is basically just our 6-man preview for the War Games match. As in a good match, Steve Corino, Bryan Danielson, and Simon Diamond defeat Jerry Lynn, Nigel McGuinness, and Chris Hero in 1941 when Bryan Danielson defeated Chris Hero with the Dragon Suplex. Like I imagine, this falls down to a 6-way. Brawl, Pure 6, crowd going crazy, and Danielson is able to get the big win over Hero. Hero gets a 35, Nigel gets a 59, Lynn gets a 50, Diamond gets a 57, Danielson gets a 61, Corino gets a 65, and yeah, as you expect, a match involving Jerry Lynn, Nigel, Chris Hero, Steve Corino, Bryan Danielson, and Simon Diamond in 2004 is pretty damn good, as it gets a 59, and then the post-match brawl gets a 57. So we're actually things are actually getting pretty hot, as this is, might be our best show. I'll double check both that 6-man match and our overall rating, because that might actually be our best shows in a while. Let me just check. So we'll run through this and we'll double check, we'll check Sabu's injury, see how hurt he is. I'm gonna guess he'll probably work through it because it's Sabu, but we'll double check. Let's see here. Okay, so time to heal, Vampire Sabu injured. Let's see here first. First, real quick, what did ROH do for their afternoon show? AJ Styles versus Sabu in Random 76, and Daniels and Dan Maff defeating Punk and Incredible in Random 75. Okay, see, totally fair. Let's see here. First medical, Sabu. Okay, so he'll be fine for the actual big show. I just want to make sure our top 100. So, okay, so not quite. Okay, so basically tied for our best TV show, which makes sense. And okay, so still not quite our best TV match, but still really good. Okay. Again, be back in just a second with Devil's Night, which again, the announced is the War Games match, Homicide versus Loki, possibly Cross versus Red, the tag title match between the Van and Pitbulls and our good friends, Jack Evans, DJ Wilson, but nothing else is officially announced, because basically, everything's hyped around War Games. I'll be back in just a second with that actual match, so see you in just a second. Okay, welcome everybody to MLW Devil's Night, live from St. Petersburg, Florida, where we've got 1,302 people, as Kevin Kelly welcomes us to the show, goes over the main matches, and then announces that we're going to opening night with a very special three-way match involving 3 of the biggest young stars in professional wrestling, because that's what MLW is all about, the hybridization of wrestling and all sorts of different styles. So this gets a 47. And then in our opening match, we have a decent match. Matt Sydal defeats Averno and Delirious in 10-11 when Matt Sydal pinned Delirious with a shooting star press. So yeah, this is a total high spots match, just everybody going crazy. Delirious doing Delirious things, Matt Sydal doing his flips, Averno doing lucha stuff. This gets a 52, Averno gets a 52, Delirious gets a 46, Matt Sydal gets a 51. Basically, like, I needed to sign some people to sort of like, honestly, so I didn't run out of matches to do, especially on TV, because I was getting very close to having to like redo a whole bunch of same matches in TV. So bringing these guys will like shore up the mid card, allow them to like be part of mid card matches, either being in matches with top guys and losing, or going over small, or going over let's go over guys, or having actual competitive matches with like guys like Loki, Red, Cross, Vampiro Vetter, etc. So recap gimmick changes. Okay, Averno's got adequate. Delirious got a large boost of charisma, even though his gimmick was poor. And Matt Sydal had a wins and losses have greater impact on popularity changes than normal. So there we go. So this gets a 52 overall. So not bad. So yeah. And then Sydal celebrating gets a 33. Oh, whoops. I put Matt Mataro instead of Matt Sydal. That's why that did not get over. Okay, well, who cares? And about that decent reaction from the crowd. But Subpar Wrestling, the SAT defeated Chad Collier and Michael Modest, Vetter and Vampiro, and Quanson Puma in 10-18 when Jose Maxwell pinned Chad Collier with a Spanish Fly. This gets a 40, and this is basically just a random match to get the SAT on the show and get the win. Michael Modest gets a 43, Chad Collier gets a 28, Joel gets a 38, Jose gets a 38, Joel gets a 43, Vampiro gets a 37, Vetter gets a 45, Bobby Quance gets a 32, and Puma gets a 32, and overall this gets a 40. And then we move on. Maximo Celebrating gets a 38. And then in our tag title match, in a decent match, the Van and Pitbulls defeat Jack Evans and TJ Wilson in 13:02 when Rocky Romero pins TJ with them Cuban Missile Crisis. This is a back and forth match, but at the end of the day, the Pitbulls are a little better, string some moves, and get the big Cuban Missile Crisis on their opponents and make defense number 1 of their tag titles. TJ Wilson gets a 35, Jack Evans gets a 43, Rocky Romero gets a 32, Ricky Reyes gets a 49, and match got the crowd hotter, overall a rating of 46. And then the Pitbull Celebrating gets a 36. Then, in a good match, Sabu defeated Ekmo in a hardcore match at 11:28 by pinfall the Arabian Facebuster. This gets a 56, which is actually a lot better than I expected. Ekmo gets a 55, Sabu gets a 52. This is back and forth, brawl, chairs, tables, barbed wire. Sabu barely, basically what happens here is, which you'll see in the angle afterwards, as Sabu is able to hit the big move, get the pinfall victory, but Ekmo kicks out at basically 3.1, and the fight continues afterwards, and this gets a 54. So yeah, this is far from over. And then, in a good bout that had good heat and decent wrestling, Low-Ki defeated Homicide in 17:50 by pinfall the Warriors Way. This gets a 53, which is a little disappointing, but Low-Ki gets a 50, Homicide gets a 45, and yeah, this is just a straight ahead win for Low-Ki. Homicide tried his best, but honestly, he's just not quite over enough or great enough in the ring to actually be a top main event guy. So he'll sort of hang around in the mid-card, upper mid-card here for the moment. But yeah, gets a 53. Low-Ki Celebrating gets a 43, perfectly solid win. And then we really move forward, as we have in our semi-main event, which gets a 53. And about that good heat and decent wrestling, the Amazing Red defeats Jason Cross in 14:50 by pinfall with Red Star Press. Amazing Red makes defense number 1 of his MLW World Junior Heavyweight title. So yeah, this is sort of what I expected as Red. They have no chemistry, they have no psych because it's Jason Cross and the Amazing Red. While I was expecting chemistry, so the match, did a little. Match got the crowd buzzing, but still, solid win for Red as he gets the big win over Cross. And then themselves shaking hand gets a 41. So, now it's War Games time, and I'm actually going to go over the match basically bit by bit here. So again, it's a War Game match, so of course the heels win the coin toss, but first 2 people in are D'Lo Brown and Roderick Strong, and they fight, back and forth. Roderick is hitting his backbreakers, has the advantage. When the 5-minute whistle blows and Simon Diamond comes in, and, the former tag team champions go to work on Roderick, just tearing him apart for 2 minutes, double team moves, maybe even Simon Diamond hitting some sort of wacky, roll the dice move, and D'Lo hitting his frog splash. But after 2 minutes, Chris Hero comes in with a save, he comes in with, European-style elbows, big sort of suplexes, just making the fight back, and it looks like the faces are back on the deal. But eventually the whistle blows again after 2 minutes, and Bryan Danielson comes in, and he just is, pure best in the world heel Bryan Danielson, taking people down, putting him against the ropes, locking him in holds, eventually getting broken up because it's still a War Games match, but just putting random suplexes, just being a dick. Eventually, Nigel McGuinness comes in as the babyface, and he just runs wild, hitting the rebound lariat. I'm thinking on maybe everybody, and as we're down, crowd pops, but that's when the final whistle blows for the heels as Steve Corino comes in, and it's again heels advantage, beating up people. Then Jerry Lynn comes in at the end to make the final save, and it's just a wild 8-man fight from there. From there, it's much more of a more modern NXT style War Games match where people are hitting wacky double teams, wacky triple teams, big moves, top rope moves, all everything wild. But in the end, we're nearing the finish, and it looks like Danielson has one with the counter mutilation. But Jerry Lynn makes the big save, hitting the huge a huge missile drop kick on Danielson from behind, breaking up the hold, and things again sort of fall apart again. But in the end, D'Lo Brown, he's going for a big assisted frog splash on Nigel McGuinness, but Nigel gets his knees up, locks in the Tower of London right in the middle of the ring, and the baby faces fight for the heels, and D'Lo has to tap out. So let's see how this actually did. This got a 63. Okay, so yeah. So it says here, in a good match, the babyfaces defeated the heels in a War Games match in 25:01 when Nigel McGuinness submitted D'Lo Brown with the Tower of London. Roderick Strong gets a 44, Chris Hero gets a 36, Nigel gets a 60, Jerry Lynn gets a 50, Bryan Danielson gets a 62, Steve Corino gets a 70, Simon Diamond gets a 56, D'Lo Brown gets a 47, Roderick Strong had a shoulder injury, so that was probably a lot of the end point is them trying to apply shoulder breakers to get him to submit. And yeah, this gets a 63. So, heels win. D'Lo Brown is now out of MLW. As a sort of shoot reason for this, why that was actually put in as a sort of as a stipulation, it's basically D'Lo walked out, and what I did was, like, I edited his contract. He was supposed to leave at the end of September, but basically I, gave him a bonus, and then I extended his contract till basically today. I think it's 2 days after today, but regardless, like, he did the job today, and he's out, and so, yeah. The babyfaces were going to win everywhere anyway, because, of course, with that, originally the stipulation was just going to be no title shots versus the title shots for everybody, but I had that other title shot of loser release towns when D'Lo is going to leave. So this gets a 63, and then babyface celebrating first gets a 51, and then Carino and Diamond turning on D'Lo, where Bryan, it says shakes hands. Well, Bryan just stands back Bryan just stands back in the corner like this isn't his deal. Gets a 65, and we finish the show getting a 59, which I don't think is our best show, but I'll double check. So as far as better, okay. So first Ekmo, because that was a better match than I expected. Nigel for being the best competitor, and Steve Carino just because you're Steve Carino. And we're going to just double check. We're going to check that top 100 to see where that War Games match listed, and also where that where the show overall ranked in our top 100. And then we'll do the show afterwards to set things up, and then that'll be it for tonight. Actually, I can, and yeah, I want to go through the whole thing. So top 100s. This was our second best show, and War Games was our second best match. Okay, so that's solid. But yeah, I'll be back in just a second with our basically our setup, not our setup show, but our aftermath taping, and then we'll go from there. So see you in just a moment as far as that goes. Alright folks, it's the taping after Devil's Night as Bayfaces have triumphed over the Extreme Horsemen, so let's get rolling. As the opening is basically, post-show from after War Games, as the Bayfaces celebration continues, champagne, high fives, talks about, they'd all be proud of either of them to be next world champion, but they're going to be the best, and it's a little bit of tension, but everybody's still mostly happy over being the Horsemen. And this gets a 54, really solid opening promo, considering these guys aren't the best talkers in the world. And we start out with a decent match. Verno defeated Bobby Quance, Delirious, and TJ Wilson in 10-11 when Verno pinned Delirious with a Devil's Wing. This gets a 49. Verno gets a 54, Bobby Quance gets a 34, Delirious gets a 42, and TJ Wilson gets a 38. Big win for Verno as he makes his TV debut after losing at Devil's Night, but gets the big win here on TV. And then Verno celebrating gets a 35. We have Amazing Red Jason Cross highlights, from the big show. Buy the DVD. This gets a 37. And then the Heart Ocean backstage, and Evans and TJ are talking about how they're going to petition MLW officials for another title shot because they got close. When Harry Smith and Jack Teddy come in and they say they've been talking, they've been thinking actually they deserve a shot to get a chance at the tag titles. There's a little bit of tension, but they eventually agree to a tag match next week, and the winners will talk to MLW officials. And then Natty and Val are still in the background. This gets a 24. Then we have in a decent match. Vedder defeats Vampiro 928 by pinfall the Whip Flash. Vedder gets a 45, and gets a 47. Vedder overall gets 44, and basically this is set up because basically they tried to team up last night. It didn't work out, so now they're fighting, and Vedder gets a big win because in the ironies of ironies, considering how he's doing my WCW 2001 save, Vampiro is basically a jobber here. And Vedder celebrates, which gets a 43. Then we have low-key Homicide highlights, which gets a 44. And then we have a Homicide in ring where basically he rants about losing low-key, saying, he got lucky. He's still the baddest mother effer in this company, and he'll take on anybody tonight. Lights go out, it's Sabu, and the match starts. This gets a 46. Where in a bout that had good heat and decent wrestling, Homicide defeats Sabu in 14-16 by pinfall the Cop Killer following interference from Mana. During the match, we also had Low-Key run and attack Homicide, so this is just a back-and-forth crazy brawl, but Homicide is able to defeat Sabu, to get the big one on TV. Homicide gets a 44, Sabu gets a 54, and yeah, two crazy matches was probably not the best idea, but what can you do? This gets a 47. And then we have the final post-show angle where in post-War Games, basically Extreme Horsemen are we got rid of the deadweight and D'Lo Brown, who can go back to, eating sushi in Japan. And Carino's, goes to Danielson, but we want to offer you a shot in the most, in the most respected name in professional wrestling. Danielson says, thanks, but no, I'm already the best in the world, so why do I need to be a Horseman? And he walks out, and now the Horsemen seem to be down to just 2, after being at 4 just a few months ago, as both D'Lo Brown and other former compatriots are now out of the company. So this gets a 54, and for this show, and it overall gets a 48. So solid show, solid post show again. Like I basically like limit myself because I do those post show videos, but I figure that's realistic because they want to put over what happened at the big show that just happened. But yeah, be back in just a second as we continue on the road to the next big show, which is Fade to Black. All right, now it's time for the final taping of the video, as it's another underground live. Well, not live, tape from the American Legion in Sarasota, Florida, in front of 382 people, as we start with Carino and Diamond in the backstage saying, we're honest men. Well, that's a lie. But we're going to prove tonight, we're going to send a message tonight to those 2 little whippersnappers in the SAT why we're the Extreme Horsemen and they're not. We're going to send a message to everybody, including all those people, all 4 of those guys who are so happy thinking they're going to the world title off of me. Because now I'm going to prove why that's just not going to happen. 56 straightforward promo sets up a match for tonight. And we start out with a decent match. Matt Sydal defeats Bobby Quance and Michael Modest in 9:51 when Matt Sydal pins Bobby Quance with a Dragon Rana. Okay, didn't have to do that, Sydal. That's a little much for a random TV match. This gets a 49. Quance gets a 35. Matt Sydal gets a 52. Michael Modest gets a 46 as he shows up randomly just to job. And Matt Sydal celebrating gets a 53. And then we had Havana Pitbulls backstage. They don't care who they face for the tag titles. Which Heart Scallions, which Heart runs they'll face, they'll beat them all. 31, straightforward promo, because they're the Pitbulls. And then, yes, in our Hart Foundation Explode match, but they don't actually explode. In a poor match, Teddy Hart and Harry Smith defeat Jack Evans and TJ Wilson 9:43. When Harry Smith pinned Jack Evans, basically Harry Smith's slightly bigger than these guys, so he gets the win, gets a 40. TJ Wilson gets a 38. Jack Evans gets a 46. Harry and Teddy both get a 27. And Teddy and Harry show excellent chemistry teaming together. That's interesting. That's very interesting considering. That might be an interesting feature. Anyway. And then a little tension, but eventually everybody hugs and is happy, and the family's all okay, as this gets a 24. And then we have War Games highlights, buy the DVD, please buy the DVD, which gets a 40, going over the War Games match, including D'Lo tapping. Danielson promo, he says he wants a challenge. Some of the men he usually face got lucky, so they're getting a world title match at Fade to Black, but he wants to face a real wrestler in the ring. So this gets a 61. And then as we move forward, in a decent match, Simon Diamond and Steve Corino defeat the SATs in 10-10 when Simon Diamond and Joel Maximo with a Simonizer. So basically, the SAT, they're doing their best, but Steve Corino and Simon Diamond, despite being assholes, are 2 of the best wrestlers in Major League Wrestling, so they actually get the clean win. But then, of course, Corino gets 71, Diamond gets a 56, both Maximo gets a 28, largely because it was set up to be a brawl. But then afterwards, there's a beatdown, but the trio babyfaces, Roderick, Nigel, and Chris Hero all run out to make the save, and there's a stare down with Corino to end the show. And overall, the show gets a 53, which, not our best show ever, but still a solid show. So what we're going to do next is make sure nothing wacky didn't happen. But after that, we are going to go over, how everybody's doing as far as overness and see how the booking has actually gone. So, let's see here. Vampiro has, I'm not surprised by that. I've been using him as basically a jobber, so that is not a surprise. But anyway, let's actually look over people first, for major stars on down. So, we start with Bryan Danielson. He's currently in the mid-4. Well, let's see here. Yeah, so let's just make sure nothing wacky. Okay, yeah. So in the last month, he's basically about the same, which makes sense because I haven't really been pushing him too hard, and he was sort of like just a random guy. Not a random guy, but sort of like the last guy in the Warrior match. Ekmo, again. Oh, okay, so if we go to Ekmo's actual popularity, if you notice, he's about a point up in most places, which makes sense. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the end of the month just so you can see all these changes. So see in just a second while I do that. Okay, let's try this again with much better ways to look at the popularity. So, popularity-wise, so yeah, Danielson is basically up a point, which makes sense. Ekmo is up a point, so again, same thing. Homicide. So Homicide's up a point in most places where he's already slightly over, and up 3 points in the Northwest, and he's up in the 5 points in the Southeast, which is also cool. Low-key. Low-key's basically the same. Oops, that's match history, not less popularity. So Nigel's about a point up everywhere, which is kind of like makes sense because he wasn't in a big singles match at the big show. So yeah, but still, he's getting there. Sabu, let's see here. Sabu's actually down a little bit in the Mid-Atlantic, which is random, which probably means he did a job on a random mini show. Southeast, he's done about 4 points. Okay, Tri-State about so doing that job on TV to Homicide actually hurt him a little bit, but you know it's worth it. And then Steve Corino. Okay, so Corino dropped a little bit because he jobbed at the in the Wargames match, but not too bad. So if we go down to stars. Verno, let's see how. So Verno jumped like a point basically for debuting. Dealer Brown's still officially, but not really, because if we look at his, he has 6 days left. So if we look at Jason Cross, so he's down a point because he did the job at the show to Amazing Red. Jerry Lynn's up a point. Okay. So that's about it. So yeah, he's basically like dropped down from a major star to star, not because he's lost popularity, but just because other people have gotten more popular than him. Like he's no longer like a top guy. Matt Seidel is up a point basically everywhere. Like there's probably gonna be guys who get like huge swings because there was no huge singles matches. Simon Diamond's up a point. Okay, probably because he was in a main event and a good match. Jerry Funk doesn't matter. Amazing Red, let's see here. Amazing Red got the win, so he's up 3 points in the Great Lakes, up a point, up 3 points in the Mid-South, up 3 points in the Midwest, up 2 points in the Southwest. So getting the big win over Jason Cross actually mattered. So if we go down to well-knowns, Delirious, let's see here. Delirious is about the same, all high 30s or low 40s. Joel Maximo, let's see how he did. Joel's up about 2 or 3 points everywhere still, so slowly getting more over. Michael Modest. Yeah, Modest is up a point, more probably because he appeared on TV than anything else. Sanjay Dutt is still unfortunately out injured with a broken leg. Sucks to you, Sanjay. Recognizable guys. Chrissy Rowe. So TD gained a lot before in the Wargames match. Let's see. Chrissy Rowe got a point. Okay, not that much. Again, probably because it was a Wargames match. Harry Smith. He's up between 2 and 4 points basically everywhere as he goes to actually mattering. Jack Evans is up. Okay, he's actually either down a point or up a point. Doesn't really matter. Jose's up only a couple points, so he's running a little bit behind his brother. People I don't care about. Oh, let's just see. Ricky Reyes is up 5 points in the Southeast, up 2 points in the Mid-Atlantic, and up a point or two everywhere else. Rocky Romero is up only 3 points in the Southeast, up only 3 points in the Mid-Atlantic. Okay. Roderick Strong is still not as over as I thought he would be. Okay, so he's up to a 42 in the Southeast, but basically not that over everywhere else, which kind of makes sense. Teddy Hart. He's up 5 points in Mid-Atlantic, 5 points in Southeast, 5 points in the Tri-State. Makes sense. He's gotten some wins. Don't really care about Vampiro, to be honest, since he's walking out. Vetter, let's see here, since I dropped. Okay, so he's about the same. Like, he's literally the same, pretty much, which makes sense. And is there anybody in unimportant that I need to check on? Just out of curiosity, let me check on Natty. So Natty's, okay, so Natty's slowly raising, just appearing in badly rated segments. And same thing with Val, slowly getting more over. If we look at our size, if we track the progress, We're up a point in the Mid-Atlantic, we're up a point in the Southeast, up a point in the Tri-State, and about the same everywhere else, except the Northwest where it dropped because we haven't been seen in a while, but, you know, as long as we're slowly gaining everywhere else. And, yeah, that's about it. So, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and leave a like, comment below, and enjoying, non-enjoying, and subscribe to our channel for more TEW 2020 content, including this, my WC 1993 Novak Bershoff series, the Cornellverse series I'm doing, this series, of course, and my long-running WCW 2001 series now in 2003 as we head towards Starrcade 2003, and Fall Brawl coming up for that. But that's it for now, so talk to you later, and adios.